Okay, welcome everyone. So this is unofficially a Purim Chabura. Isaac asked me this week when we were talking if I could give Chabura. He said yes. He said, "Is it on Purim?" And I said, "Isn't everything?" So it wasn't officially on Purim, but it actually has a lot to do. The more I prepared it, and the more I reread the sources that I had. It was a Chabura I've had in the pipeline since Lech Lecha, and it was just waiting for Isaac to give me that final kick. But I realized that it actually is very much a Purim Chabura, more than any other topic I would think it would be related to. And I've been calling it the artist Chabura because it centers around what I kind of view my personal general view of the characteristics of an artist and what their role is in the world as was set up from creation, not focusing on the specifics of this artist or that artist and what this guy said and that person said and this Jewish or that Jewish, more of what through sources God, as it were, created the artist and his craft to do in this world for us. I'd just like to start by reading the border, because the three statements that are on the border are kind of the thread that will bind all this together. The first is from Aviva Gottlieb Zornberg. An act of radical discontinuity is, it seems, depicted in the Torah as the essential basis for all continuity. We're not going to delve into them, we're just going to read them. The next is from D.W. Winnicott, Donald Winnicott, who was a psychologist, if you could just plainly call him that, but he was a lot more than that. A correct and well-timed interpretation and an analytic treatment gives a sense of being held physically that is more real than if holding or nursing had taken place. Understanding goes deeper. And the last is Reb Yaakov would say, this from Pirkei Avos, Reb Yaakov would say, this world is comparable to the corridor before the world to come. So those three statements, whether I reference them or not, are going to be the reference point for everything that will be said from now till the end. And just one note on the title, I called it "The Pen is Indeed Mightier," because I knew it would be a catchy title. And the artist uses a pen at some point, whether he's a painter, a poet, whatever form of art you're dealing with, the pen is very important. So let's begin. Purim, as we know, is all about revelation through concealment. The entire Yom Tov of Purim is about hiddenness. God's name is hidden. We wear costumes, we wear masks. We get to a point of Adil Yada where our true self is revealed via hiding away and concealing our everyday self. So we get to a point where we no longer can distinguish between the blessed Mordechai and the cursed Haman. They're one and the same. You could be the cursed Haman and you're equally as exalted as the blessed Mordechai and vice versa. The day of manifesting yourself in the hiddenness of yourself is the Yom Tov of Purim. And I truly believe that the artist will deal specifically right now with a painter, but we'll expand it as we go on to different art forms. His goal is to reveal something much deeper, to take an idea and conceal it within colors, hues, sculptures. You see some artists use dots. You see some artists use thick painting layered on thicker painting, and to conceal a simple idea. And I think it's no coincidence that a lot of famous or a lot of important art pieces, to get into the discussion of what's important and what's not important is a whole other thing, but seminal pieces of art that kind of have transcended the entire history of art. You a lot of times either go untitled or with some like banal title that like has nothing to do with like what they're trying to convey. I'm more enamored by the untitled works of people because you have someone putting in soul and depth to something, and it's so deep that they can't give it a title. Untitled number 1, untitled number 2, untitled number 3. You see a lot of them of collections that go the entirety as untitled. I think it's not just a coincidence that happens. I think the artist is really trying to reveal something deeper through the act of concealing it. So I think the artist is very related to Purim, and which we'll address. We all have a little artist in us, whether we're this great painter, poet, essayist, or we're just someone who writes down their thoughts in a journal or whatever. We're all contributing something that God reserved for the artist in general and the specific artist contained within every person. And hopefully by the end we'll see why concealment through revelation yields a higher knowledge and is a higher level of revealing and manifesting godliness in the world than something that's revealed from the beginning. And that's why Purim, the end of days, is going to be the yontif that we celebrate above all else, and the only one, because specifically through manifesting godliness through concealment, it contains the ability and the power to withstand the light that will come at the end of days. Specifically because it's concealed, because there's a covering, because we live in a world that's called the Alma de Iskalia, the revealed world, and above is the Alma de Iskasia, the concealed world. It's funny that those two terms, you would think it's the opposite, but I've read about it and seen it explained was that the covering that separates us protects us. Otherwise we'd be obliterated in the awesome light of God. So it protects us. So at the end of days, when that light is revealed, by manifesting godliness through concealment, that will sustain through the Tesseract. I don't know what other way to say it.
Let's get back to planet Earth here.
Alright, let's get into some text.
What's that mean?
Tesseract?
Was that last word?
That was from Interstellar.
Interstellar was a sick
I'm
movie.
aiming you.
Yeah, that's what he goes through at the end. He starts to see
Wasn't
everything.
it also from the Avengers? Yeah.
Could be. I didn't see the Avengers.
True Detective.
Did I? No. Okay, let's get into text. Bring us back to this world. So I wanted to first do a snapshot of the artist arena where he's working within. So the first source, I didn't number them because there is no real order to this. I just it was whatever the last order I put it in before I came here. So the first source is from the Igros Kodesh of the Rebbe. It's a fascinating letter. It's a bit longer. This is the translated version. It was in the original Yiddish. It was written to Henoch Lieberman, who was Reb Mendel Fortefass's brother, who lived a very hard and terrible life. He lost his whole family in the Holocaust, went to the gulags. He spent his life in depression, but he was an extremely talented artist. And this was a letter he wrote to the Rebbe about it. He was very depressed. And the Rebbe wrote back to him. He didn't specify what his depression was about. So the Rebbe wrote him, a general advice on how to deal with it. And within that, he knew he was a very talented artist. He knew who he was. Fortefasses were very important people in Chabad, especially in the old days when, Russia keeping it alive. So he wrote to him what the artist does, and it's fascinating what he says. I wouldn't believe it in terms of religious thought if I didn't see it. So just pick up the third paragraph because I pasted it together out of order. So he says, Kan Chova Allah. He's writing to him now about what specifically try to make him feel better. So he says, this is what your role in the world. This is what you're doing. Kan chova alai lahagbil es atzmi im ha'ara klali b'chol ha'inyan, b'yistamech al piskam ha'bal shem tov, shechavkei mori v'chami admor, chazar alav pam rabos. So, shekol Yehudi yachol lilmod hora'ah b'avodas Hashem. Every Jew is able to learn something, an insight into his avodas Hashem, b'kol mashu roa o shomea, with everything that he hears or sees throughout the day. Ritzoni lahayir es hamekara shelo b'frat, to kind of illuminate its source, specific source within me. So I see something, and now I'm learning from that. I have to illuminate what I'm seeing and what I'm hearing. Its supernal root. That's like the
Supernal or in yourself?
In yourself, but it's revealing ultimately in Avodas Hashem. It's revealing how you're serving God through that. So you're revealing it in yourself, but you're connecting it above. It's an early doctrine of Chassidus, is seeing God in everything, godliness in everything. Betach Yodea she'ikr amanos hatzayir v'chachmas hatzir hi yicholasol hisnaktek me'achitzonia shel hadavar. So the artist, the profession of artist, the artist comes and he's able to kind of trim away the chitzonius of the thing, the exterior view of the thing. Umivli habeit al hatzura hachitzonius yuchal lahayef mabat pnima v'liro sham es pnimius v'atmas hadavar. And he's able to give insight into the inner aspect of the thing, to the pnimius and the atzmas of the davar, the innerness and the essence of the thing. V'achar kach limsor zos b'tzir. So now you can understand more, when you hear it in these terms, you can understand the prohibition of painting, certain things. Because, as we'll see in other sources, a very talented artist is able to paint the pnimius and the etzem hadavar. And when you start to paint, other objects, and you see the essence of the thing, it can become very confusing. Who's the god, and who's the god, or is it the god of the gods? Or you start to get into certain things that the Rambam was kind of fearful about. Whole side point. I don't want to get into that. Often sharo es atzir shalatzayir yizgalalo b'tzir mashalo hivchin bo kodem ki atoch haya mustar al yidei inyanim tefeilim. So when we look at something, we're blurred by secondary things. You look at a piece of art, and you see 1,000 different things. Oh, this puts 3 dots on each corner. Why does it leave out the 4th? And then we there's a smudge of paint here. Little do we know that the artist just didn't do that, and when they restored it, they did that. But we think the artist sees the essence of something, paints that, and then when we look at it, we see something that's obscured by tefillim, by secondary things. But the artist comes along. Sorry, I missed for a second. So we'll see an object, a beer bottle, and it's probably a terrible example because it's gonna be hard for us to attach to the godliness in the beer bottle. So we'll see it and we'll be distracted by other characteristics of it. So an artist will come and in some way will paint the beer bottle and reveal the pnimius and the atzmus of the davar. That's what he's doing. I'm not an artist.
Get it. Okay.
So the painter is he sees it more than it actually
exactly.
is. He sees what it really is.
Yeah, what it really is.
This is exactly Plato's Republic cave scene, right? The poet gets or the artist even gets directly to the root of the item, and we're obscured by seeing the shadows of the item.
Yeah, very similar. Yeah. Kach megale hatzir es atzmas v'mehus hadavar shehu mitzayer v'haro ezos roa es hadavar ba'or amiti achar v'hutofe shelifnei kan haisalotas. Achol advar ma'ele v'akol chizayon hazeh Echad ha'ikarim b'avodas ha'adam lekono. Kivi sheyoda me'atorah b'chlal u'mechassidus b'frat. Kol habriya kula nova midvar Hashem. V'dvar Hashem havu mekayim osa b'cholis v'chorega rak shemitzad koach hatzimtzum v'gevura aloki nimtza davar Hashem behelem v'hester v'nir rak yisoneh. So God concealed everything into, its concealed parts, this world. And the artist comes and he paints something which reveals the essence of the thing. And by revealing it, he kind of takes the shift from shadow-like things, from tefillim, from secondary things. The notion of tefillim is like a very important word and concept that he uses. They're
Klipos also?
no, tafel means it's not important. It's unimportant in the discussion of the thing. There's the ikr, there's the main thing, and then there's the tefillim. No one wants the tafel, everyone wants the ikr. So the artist comes along and guides people along the way. He says, you're looking this way when you should be looking this way. You're looking at it this way when you really should be looking at it upside down. What you think is upside down. He comes along and it starts to open your eyes to when you look at a piece of art and it's an upside down can of dog food, and you're like, what the hell, and the notion of us viewing things wrong and as tafel, as secondary. In that example, the secondary would be that it's a can of dog food, it's upside down, it's, there's a deeper message to what's trying to be conveyed. And it's hard to see it in the moment, like you look at much of contemporary art and you start to think like, I could do that, and this is like, it's a dirty sheet, and somehow this got into MoMA. That's a real experience, thought process I had.
How do you think this would sort of transfer to music?
Well, could we get back to that question?
Sure.
We're not going to necessarily get to music. I thought about it, but I realized it could be a whole nother Chabura. We'll get to expand it to the poet, which it's just you're expanding it to all art. Because one point the Rebbe made in the letter that the whole goal of a Jew is to reveal what was concealed by God in order to create the world. It's the real godliness in the concealments of the world. So the artist, this is what he's doing. But then when he turns you on to something, so that doesn't mean you just wait around for the next guy to come and point you the right way. When you see something that's, deep, it leaves an imprint, which we're going to get to the notion of Rishimu in a second. I just wanted to turn to the second page for a second to that Reb Kook thing. This is from the Jewish Chronicle. It was right, I think Reb Kook died in 35, didn't he? I don't know. Whatever. It was. I think it was because maybe in the week before they wrote something about Reb Kook. So here he says, this guy, I think Melnikov. So he says, as an artist, I am interested in the biblical prohibition of making graven images that has had so much influence in the creation of Jewish art. One day I talked to the late Rabbi Kook about this prohibition. I asked him whether it is true that somewhere in our holy commentaries there is a passage which says that under certain conditions sculpture is allowed to be done by Jews. The rabbi knitted his brows. Let me see, he was saying to himself. A few moments later, he brought down a huge Gemara oath from the shelves.
Yeah.
He piled them up on the table, lines of the holy script as he read. This went on I read a bunch of these articles. It's poetic writing of already poetic people. So it gets even crazier. Something like when I talk about Rav Kook in London or Rav Kook dying, it's like we would imagine he's not dead. The way the guy's writing about him, there's well, let's get back to this. This went on for a half an hour. He looked like a hunter on the trail, a hunter after truth and knowledge. At least he stood up triumphantly. Here it is. Oh, at last he stood up triumphantly. Here it is. He said, now listen to what our sages say about your question. I don't remember the exact wording he quoted, but it was something like this. Our sages say, he read out, that it is allowed to Jews to make images if these are done imperfectly and maimed. This made me laugh. Why are you laughing, he asked. in that case, I replied, I'm sure my sculpture is kasher. Why, he asked, because my work is far from being perfect. Now was his turn to laugh. He was all kindness. We talked about art, and he told me the following story. When I lived in London, I used to visit the National Gallery, and my favorite pictures were those of Rembrandt. I really think that Rembrandt was a tzaddik. Do you know that when I first saw Rembrandt's works, they reminded me of the legend about the creation of light? We are told that when God created light, it was so strong and pellucid.
Yeah. Of course.
I only got up to like E's when I studied for SATs back in the day. That one could see from one end of the world to the other, but God was afraid that the wicked might abuse it. What did he do? He reserved the light for the righteous when the Messiah should come. But now and then, there are great men who are blessed and privileged to see it. I think that Rembrandt was one of them, and the light in his picture is the very light that was originally created by God Almighty. I have read much about Rembrandt, but none gives such a vivid description of his genius as this. Only a man as pure of heart and soul as Rabbi Cook could have seen the Rembrandt in the light. Very powerful. Very, very powerful. But what I wanted to take away from that was that there's a notion, and from the other letter, there's a notion of the artist revealing or connecting deeply to creation and what happened in creation, and then ultimately, our world, which is an outcome of the creation process. And I really think that the artist is working within that arena of connecting us to the light that was kind of concealed at creation. He has a way of perceiving and seeing that light. And in the artist, an imprint was left of creation, where he's now painting that imprint onto another imprint for us to see and for it to make an imprint on us, in order for all of us to trace our way back to that light of creation that's going to be revealed again at the end of days.
There's a sculpture of David HaMelech in the old city, and somebody from Parnovich, I think from one of the yeshivas, took a hammer and knocked off his nose in order to make the sculpture imperfect in accordance with halacha.
Good for him.
Yeah. It's normal. That's actually straw for you.
So that notion of artist's arena being creation
Jewish art.
means that this notion of Rishimu is very important. This notion of a residue, an imprint being left is very important. And if we turn to page 1 again, to that Particulars of Rapture from Levi Gottlieb Zornberg, who I have to say guided me through this, and I accepted this week as a teacher of mine. I didn't tell her, but her books are amazing, and if you're looking for unbelievable books on Parsha and everything, she has
She's the
amazing,
psychological insights lady.
I guess if that's what we're calling her, yep.
I think I have her.
So check out the psychological insights.
Psychological
lady.
maturity, or something like that.
Maturely.
Maturity.
So, in a poignant essay, John Berger, when I think he's highlighting a shift in art that took place in the Impressionist period, because everything that's happening in the world is happening along that linear line of moving from creation to messianic time.
Amen.
I think, based on what I've read and understood, where Cook viewed everything like that, everything's just moving this way towards. So when things in history happen, there's underlying connections between everything that's happening. So here he says, in a poignant essay, John Berger writes of the sadness in Monet's eyes. The painter whose early work led to the coining of the term Impressionism introduced a new melancholy into painting. It is this sadness that Berger describes from Monet. The history of painting had henceforward to admit that every appearance could be thought of as a mutation, and visibility itself should be considered flux. The instantiability of the painting method reflects a scene that is makeshift, threadbare, decrepit. It is an image of homelessness. Its very insubstantiality makes shelter in it impossible. Looking at it, the idea occurs to you of a man trying to find his road home through a theater decor. The effect of such a painting, unlike previous paintings which allow the viewer to enter into them, is that you are compelled to recognize that the subject, is no longer there. Each viewer remains alone with her memories. An impression is what is left behind because the scene has disappeared or changed. What you receive is taken from what happens between you and it. The concern of the painter is with the desperate wish to save all, which makes it such an amorphous, flat, and yet, if one recognizes it for what it is, touching image. Such a concern left both painter and viewer more alone than ever before, more ridden by the anxiety that their own experience was ephemeral and meaningless. I take the sadness in Monet's eyes as an emblem for the... Okay, so that's more connected to her larger essay, but I read this the first time, Parshas Bo, and depressing. Like, a few lines. A few
And
paragraphs.
somehow, like, that explains a Rashi. Like, knowing Aviva's Zorba.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah. I'm telling you, Rashi is saying
She
a
loves
lot.
Rashi.
Yeah, it's a
Rashi
lot.
was saying a lot, right? Rashi was
It's
deep.
saying a lot. But the more I thought about it, it's a momentary... It's a
dispelled biblical criticism.
Leiv Nishbar, I don't want to call it a depression, a momentary broken heart for a long-term joy. Looking at something and realizing what you're looking for, not being there, only makes you look for the thing even more. And when I was thinking about it in this light, I thought about from Inception, you know, that dialogue they had where they're trying to explain the idea of incepting an idea into someone's brain. He mentions, I say, think of an elephant. Now all you could do is think of an elephant. Don't think of an elephant, all you do is think of an elephant. Same thing here, you know, something's missing from the painting, so all you're going to do is think about that thing and try to find that thing, try to discover that thing, find it in the painting, find it somewhere else, but it's going to make you constantly think about the thing. I think when we think about the artist acting in the arena of creation and acting as kind of a messenger in that way from God to remind us of something we once knew, it only incepts the idea into us. We're open to it happening by the fact that you're going there. We're not like, it's not like the artist isn't like, you know, they're not like falling asleep on a plane and whatever. We're open to the notion of having our entire life changed by realizing that something is missing. Because ultimately, through God's concealment, he's missing in a way from this world. Even though he's underneath everything and within everything and enlivening everything, he's missing from the world.
He's hidden.
He's hidden from the world that we know, the manifested world of Asiya that we see. We don't see God. We have to uncover God, reveal it. So from this low place or this last stop, the train turns around, and tries to find its way back. But there's I think, I don't want to make generalized statements, but there's a way that, if we get sci-fi for a second, where the train doesn't have to spin around on a track, it goes sofo notes tchiloso, that it just kind of breaks through platform 9 3/4 and goes through and just continues its route around, and the realization that everything was just that one point before creation. The concealment created this whole notion of, okay, we have to go this way, and then we have to go back that way. But in reality, we're just going, and then when you reveal God in this world, all it does is reveal that you're right back here. Not even that you're right back here, you never even went anywhere. In a way that this world functions, the creation of the world, the tzimtzum, left a roshem of God in the world. There's a residue. So the artist comes and tries to reveal that residue to us, to incept into us the idea, no matter how in tune we think we are, or how to out of tune someone else thinks we are. To put it in our mind, and all of a sudden you're overcome with this notion of, I don't know what I have to find, but I have to find something. And people will go their whole lives looking for this something.
The fact that we're looking for God means that He exists.
We're not necessarily looking for God. That's the
We're
thing.
looking for something to feel something, feel an emptiness. Something's missing from our lives.
Or you feel
Yeah.
like the end, or you feel like
Yeah, it's you feel that it's an equally depressive and emotionally high, joyful feeling.
Bipolar.
In a way, yeah. Okay, so now we have to go back to that initial revelation through concealment creation to understand the paramount revelation that's happening at Purim. So, creation of the world and the Tzimtzum narrative happened. God removed himself from the world, what Harold Bloom calls holding of the breath. That God inhaled, held the breath, and he doesn't necessarily continue. I didn't read far enough to see whether God. I think God blows out in the creation of man ultimately. Man is the crowning achievement in a way of this the creation of this world. So that holding of the breath is that Tzimtzum place.
who said that?
What, holding the breath? Harold Bloom. So let's go down to this beginning of desire source. Again, from Viva Gaudi's Zomberg, these are her essays on, her reflections on Genesis. So keep in mind this notion of Tzimtzum, of holding back, of removing God. God removed himself, as it were, from the world. So a similar image of potential space underlies a description of God and wisdom as father and daughter in Proverbs. The Hebrews on the left. Ve'ekyeh etzlo amon, ve'ekyeh etzlo amon, ve'ekyeh shashuim yom yom, misacheket lefanei b'chol eis. Then I was by him as a nursling, amon, a nursling, and I was daily all delight, playing always before him, playing in his habitable earth, and my delights are with the sons of men. Wisdom speaks here. Created before the world, she describes her own development in the formless void. When there were no depths, I was brought forth, and her growth in the earliest stages of separation and formation, when the fountains of the deep showed their might. The passage describes the play area, the potential space between all-encompassing Father and fully articulated world. This is the area that the Kabbalists called the Chalal Panui, the empty space evacuated by God, who retrenched his total presence in order to make it possible for a world to emerge. The cosmological drama described in Lurianic Kabbalah is understood in psychological terms by writers like Rav Nachman, indeed readily translatable into Winnicott's language. For the vacuum left by God, God's loving retreat is tremulous and alive with possibility. Panui implies freedom for, not freedom from. It suggests an infinite turning toward of possible attentions and intentions. So,
Which one was that?
the front page, bottom right. So this Chalal Panui, this potential space, this evacuated space, this empty space.
We've talked about this before in the Chabura.
Yeah.
We talked about
This is a topic more suited for Joey Rosenfeld.
Joey Rosenfeld
I'm
talks
just
about this.
I'm just holding it over till
Keeping it
he
warm
comes
for him?
back from St. Louis.
Same idea though. You firm.
Yeah, it's Simpson. Yeah. Well, everything's Simpson. Everything is.
This Joey.
So this potential. No, but he's.
Joey moved out. Yeah.
I'm the ball buster. Whoever's giving shear, I bust the balls. That's what I.
So this potential space acts almost as like a bridge, a transitional space from God's infinite light, all-encompassing Father, to fully articulated world, to the Olam Hasiya, to the world of shapes, of everything we know and see. And it's known, the term, she's using the term wisdom because the idea of chachma is that first movement towards created world. There's the infinite light of God, and the first turn towards created world is Chachma, Chachma Ilah, Chachma, and then Tabina, Das, Chagat Nahim, all the way down. But the first turn is Chachma, is when things move from a place of all-encompassing no potential to something of potential. There's the potential for potential. That's what Chachma is. The potential for potential. Because when it comes to God and his infinite light, there's no ability for anything to exist. It's null and void to that. So in order for there to be potential, the potential for potential had to be created. So the first step is this chachma, this removal, in a way, to create this potential for created
Potential.
thing. You need a created space for created thing. And I want to say and suggest, based on like Winnicott's psychology on child development, where he says that there's this notion of when a child is developing and growing up, this notion of potential space where the child kind of moves along, develops, and there's something called a transitional object. The thing we associated with a bear, the child is a bear, a blanket, so that helps him transition through early development in this potential play space of where he's still figuring out the world. And in a way, that's what we're doing in this world. We're kind of like little children, little nurslings, feeling around, trying to like figure out, okay, I know that's my mother, I know how she sounds, I know how, but this other thing, which sounds similar to my mother, like, do I just go to it, or is it dangerous? And I want to suggest, for the purpose of this Chabura, that the artist is the transitional object for us in this world. The artist in general and the artist within us is the thing that we attach to and hold on to in this world. And it's no coincidence that Rav Kook used the term tzaddik to refer to an artist, I think, because that's what tzaddik is also. He's a transitional object that you hold on to and attach to in order to kind of be pointed in the right direction of where's God and how do I find him more, than what are those lyrics on that tripped out Baal Shem Tov song at the end.
You can show you where to dig and what to dig.
You have to do, yeah. So the tzaddik, the artist, in a way, will show you, what to do. You'll see something that leave an imprint on you because it's concealed and you want to reveal it. It's up to us to do something with it, and I think that's where our inner artist comes in, which we'll address at the end. But this potential space, this bridge, is bridged by the artist, and this halal panui. Anytime there's a concealment in the world, it's in a way reenacting the halal, the retraction of God, and the creation of potential space. And we look at things sometimes in the wrong perspective of saying that a tzimtzum of whatever it is a negative thing. But a tzimtzum of something is really the creation of a potential for something a lot deeper and a lot more grand. Because ultimately, by revealing God in this world, we connect to the deepest secrets, I don't know, whatever they are. So this potential space, top right, yet another level of meaning is provided by the association of Ammon, nursling, with artistry. Aman. The child wisdom is represented as playing in the transitional area between total union with the nursing father and the defined identities of the created world. This is the space of the artist, of the child, who creates objects expressing his alienation and his connection. And this play rejoices the father. Wisdom speaks out of its own experience, but includes the projected viewpoint of the father. Then I was by him as a nursling, playing always before him, in his habitable earth, as well as that of created sons and men. The interplay between God and man is the area in which wisdom perpetually moves. This is the dance of ceaseless life. The child's play is free of the anxiety of influence. Harold Bloom's term for the artist's experience of Oedipal anxiety, a modality in which predecessors threaten strangulation of new creativity and must be in some sense destroyed if the new is to survive. Here, the Father, it's where the notions of renewing the old and sanctifying the new come in. It's not always about just renewing the old. It's not about that. Because that will just lead to a strangulation of anything new. It's never going to be new. So you take the old and renew it, and then that new things, you sanctify it. Meaning, here and now, where you are. I always looked at Rav Kook's statement when he said it as two separate things, but that's what we're doing. We're renewing the old and sanctifying what we've renewed, not something sanctifying a separate entity. I think the artist is operating from that Rishimu of the Halal by pointing us that there's something we're missing. There's there's the revelation of godliness that's missing. I don't know what it is, but I need to find it. I need to uncover it. I need to reveal it. I need to reveal me. That ultimately, will simultaneously express alienation. Looking for you're looking in the wrong places at first. You're alienated from yourself, but you're moving towards connecting, moving towards revealing. So, it's a paradigm shift, it's a perspective shift of I'm lacking, I have no revealed anything in me, I don't know who I am. But when it's revealed to us that we have to look for something, that there's something that needs to be revealed, we're alienated, but we're already moving towards the coming together. What's the word she uses? Connection. And ultimately, that's what brings joy to God, is not, necessarily revealing in the revealed, but revealing in the concealed, by taking something that doesn't seem like it has its connection to the source and showing or using or doing with a connection to the source.
Partnering with God in order to create and to reveal down here in the Olam HaTachtonim that He is present.
Yeah.
That He's running the world.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it all comes from that potential space of recognizing that there's a residue of God in the world. It's there, and that's what causes us to look for things, ultimately because we're supposed to be revealing godliness in the world. And there's an infinite number of ways to do that, because God's infinite. So to reveal Him in a finite number of ways would mean that He's only, I think, if I'm speaking logically correct, that He's finite. So that means there's an infinite ways to reveal God in the world.
So we can find God in our job, in our everyday life,
Everything.
in our jobs,
Everything.
in the way we behave, in the way
Everything.
we act at our jobs, the way we treat people, the ideas we come up with, the way we want to conduct our meetings.
But you're already functioning in like a world of accepted notions of where we reveal God. It goes so beyond what we could even imagine, because let's say you're traveling and you find yourself in the middle of some village and wherever, so all those things are not necessarily going to come about. There's no job anymore, there's no this, there's no that. You're just alone somewhere. So how do you reveal God there? And sometimes it's the thing that we run away from that is the way to reveal God in the place. By saying, at least I'm speaking, everything when I say we, I refer to myself. I just like the royal we. It makes me feel comfortable. You think that, in this place I have to reveal God in this way. And in this way I have to reveal God in this way. I should make a bracha here that's going to reveal God. Maybe I'm supposed to reveal Him in a different way over here. So what you're saying is 100% correct, but the ways go way beyond what we could even imagine, because it's every second of our lives, whatever we're doing, from moment to moment to moment, is about revealing the underlying godliness that's.
We're all
laid in
actors.
everything.
We're acting out God's will.
Yeah, I am the actor, and I am the son.
We have a drama to act
I will
out.
admit all the wrongs that I've done.
Yeah, it's a drama.
It's a total drama. The
It's
world
one big drama.
A drama.
And this joy that God gets ultimately is the joy that we feel. It's what Harold Fish, which is an interesting book if anyone wants to read, Culture and Anarchy, whatever. He says it's the joy of recognition, and he contrasts it with something she mentioned about Harold Bloom, anxiety of influence, which is one of his more important ideas, is that the old strangles the new and never lets it be new. You always have to do what
Yeah, it's a problem with tradition.
Yeah, in a way, in a bigger way. Well, by reducing it to a liberal conservative thing, you're already miring yourself in more mud than the term even put itself in. But the way he puts it is, the joy of recognition is, I've shifted my self to look at where I'm going to versus where I'm coming from. So yes, I am this new. I have this feeling of needing to find something. I might be alienated from what I'm finding, but I'm moving towards what I'm looking for. And that's the joy of recognition versus the anxiety of influence is always what is holding me back. The joy of recognition is what is and what will be is pulling me forward. If you view life, I think, in that way, it makes it a little better. Can't say it makes it definitely better, a little bit better.
So it's a really beautiful notion of what an artist is doing in his role, his or her role. I still don't really get it. So they're revealing something, but we have no idea what it is. And it's like it's going to make you think about things and question things and push you on a path. That's what the term you keep using. But like what? So
the art in like Rav Kook's writings, which we'll see in a second, he talks about, he makes a distinction between a pure-hearted and a holy artist. The paradigmatic is B'tzalel. These are from religious thinkers. Even Rav Kook is a religious thinker, but could also not be a religious thinker, They're revealing godliness in the world. They're revealing that everything in this world is powered by God, enlivened constantly by God. They're revealing that there is a God in the world and He's running things. That's what they're revealing. Then other artists who I'm only basing this on what I've seen, but I'd even be inclined to say that they're revealing some deeper thing within us. It's like we see something and it triggers something within us. And in this world, one of the ways we reveal godliness is finding ourselves. Because when we find ourselves, then our whole life becomes our mission, what we're supposed to do. And when you're doing your mission completely, so every step you take is going to be a revelation of godliness in this world. It's only when we don't necessarily see what we're doing or know what we're doing as our given mission in this world. So then we sometimes reveal God in the world, and we sometimes conceal Him. And we do something, I think every artist, from the Jewish artist or even the Rembrandts, are revealing like the light of creation, God, and things that are like unimaginable to the imagination unimaginable to the imagination. So we see it in their painting, so it gives us an aura of that thing, of the light of creation, of God, of this. So then we become more in tuned, to the sacred and to God and to the divine and all that in the world. So then when I go into whatever I'm doing in the world, it's where is God in this setting, not can't wait to get back to the religious setting of the synagogue, of the beis medrash, of the, you know, what else is there? And the, you know, because that's where God is.
But are you saying that there can be art which is actually not revealing,
Yeah.
which is concealing?
Which-
And how are we
just-
supposed to differentiate it?
So people like Rav Kook and probably like the Rebbe in the letter would probably say, only look at the art of the artist who are pure and holy. Just to use like language they use.
You think that Rav Kook thought that Rembrandt was pure and
He
holy?
said it.
But it's not, I don't think he's talking about Rembrandt the person. I think he's talking about,
Rembrandt.
Rembrandt the artist.
So that notion of what's pure and holy is like, that leads to so much more debate about what's pure and holy, because as you know, obviously where Rav Kook said was pure and holy, like a large part of the Jewish world would say is the exact opposite, is mundane and dirty. You know, especially his statements. Imagine what his statements about Rembrandt are viewed as in areas of Judaism that wouldn't even look at the paintings of Heinrich Lieberman. You know,
That's art. That's why they buried them.
so yeah, just like there's artists that reveal, there's artists that conceal. But the artist's job is is in the arena of revealing through concealment. So either he further conceals or he reveals. I don't make that clear, because he's working in that evacuated space of connecting us to God, or us to something larger, deeper, more profound. So either he reveals more or he conceals more.
Okay. This might be too much of a tangent, but it just got me thinking. Do you think there are certain kinds of music, styles, or drum beats, or instruments that are like chutz lamachane? Like you cannot say that that's Jewish music. Like Jewish music is this kind of beat and these kinds of instruments. Or do you think like?
Well, I would say the second thing you just said like discounted the first thing you said, because to say that there's certain beats that aren't, because like music is like a collection of beats, I think, not necessarily individualized beats. So like say this beat is not a Jewish beat, but the first notion of there's certain music that's not Jewish music, I mean, what is Jewish music? Like, what is not shweki?
No, that's what I'm asking. I'm saying like, are there
I think
to quote Raviel, he says that
I think there's
you can't
depth
say there's
in-
such a thing as Jewish or non-Jewish music because music sort of is beyond. It's not a religion. It's something that's
Right.
sort of is
It's
beyond
either
that type
like
of
depth-oriented
definition.
music or
I feel like some
surface-oriented
people
music. I
want to
think
make it a
is
religion. Like I don't know. I've heard things. I don't know if it's true, but like certain communities, like we don't use these instruments in our recordings of Jewish music, or whatever.
Yeah, there are people who do that. I mean, the reality is like
Yeah,
I think it's very subjective,
He's a
but
bibliophile.
there are communities that do such things. You can watch on YouTube some guys taking out plugs because the music's whatever. But
Yeah,
I think the
Hasidim
reality
do
is
that.
like I have personally listened to music where I feel like these terrible, destructive emotions and like depressing things where it's like, yeah, you should not listen to that. It's not good for you. It's not bringing you closer to God. It's bringing you closer to the bad things. You know that.
Right.
There's
The
probably
torture playlist.
So that's a subjective feeling. That's not.
yeah, of course, it's a subjective
uniform.
feeling,
Yeah.
but I think we all need to be cognizant of that.
Like Skrillex, everyone die. Sorry, you know. Like that's it's intense.
It's probably right.
Dubstep is just like I hate everyone.
There is music
Yeah.
that they use to
That
torture
maybe is not
people.
Jewish music.
That might not be.
Yeah.
Yeah, that might be like a
So
like
I don't
a more
wanna-
objective.
Still,
I would say
it still
that-
shows you. It still
Yeah.
can teach
Use
you
Isaac
something.
answer
I
for now, and we'll.
Yeah.
I don't want to get into more of a tangent.
Yeah. Sorry.
No, but it was good. That's
Oh yeah.
after seeing Isaac.
I
But to continue kind of like your question of here, it was a little abstract. So Wallace Stevens kind of brings it down a little bit more. And he says the major poetic idea in the world is and always has been the idea of God. One of the visible movements of the modern imagination is the movement away from the idea of God. The poetry that created the idea of God will either adapt it to our different intelligence or create a substitute for it or make it unnecessary. yeah, so not to get into what his views of God are, or but I think that kind of like brings what we said down into a little smaller, narrower of a space. That the notion of a talented artist, it's like, it's a shame that there's only this one word, artist, because I just keep repeating it.
Expressionist.
Who is kind of the idea of what they're trying to reveal is God. So the fact that they're choosing to try to get your attention with something else, so the pull and the power is going to be as strong. They've just replaced what their kind of divine job is in this world. From creation, this notion of this potential space, which is the artist space, so that means from the time of creation, God created this craft called art that was supposed to be a signpost for people to return to Him. Because He knew in this world there would be concealment upon concealment, and the idea of God would get lost. God Himself would be lost in the world. So He created this craft, this space where this craftsman operates in, who should be trying to bring people back to that idea. And just because someone is not doing that, that doesn't mean the job of the craft doesn't change. This is what it is. So it will be substituted. So the impression that will leave on someone else will be still equally as powerful. Just because it's, we sometimes have this notion that only a godly religious idea can be impactful and powerful. But an idea that's anti-religious or anti-God won't have power. It will have tremendous amount of pull and sway and imprint on a person, equal and opposite to the feelings of change that a person will get from a spiritual, religious God encounter. Zelu mazeh asa Elokim.
There was a poem, I forgot the name of it, in 19th century in Germany. This guy wrote about killing himself because, his lover left him and all this, whatever. And, there was just a tremendous amount of suicides all over Germany afterwards. Because it really made an effect on people.
Yeah.
It's not just it's art, don't worry about it, it's nothing. It's a very serious, impactful thing. It's
Everyone blamed Ozzy Osbourne for the kids committing suicide.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, more recently.
That was
those explicit lyrics and all the shootings and everything.
Yeah, so there's a whole court case about it.
Yeah, and the Senate and the hearings and the Congress.
Yeah.
Hillary Clinton.
And I think the notion of the modern imagination is important, because if you look in Cook's writings as well, he does speak about how, what most people view as a terrible turn away from God, atheism and all those things, Reb Cook just sees as kind of a mirror towards a stronger, higher, greater revelation of God in the world and for that person. So in a way, the movement away from it, to read Reb Cook into Wallace Stevens, is only, even when you see art or something that conceals God further, that's just sick and depraved. In some weird, sick, depraved way, it's preparing us to view what we're supposed to view in art, to see what we're supposed to see in art. Most people don't get. You need Anne Unlin talking in your ear at MoMA to tell you what to see, because our imaginations are so infantile. We can't imagine what the light of creation would look like. We can't imagine what godliness would look like, because we're so used to concealing it and saying that this is not godliness. So the notion of looking at something and it shocking your brain because it's so crazy, look at most of contemporary art, I think is a way of shocking the mind into being able to see in those pieces of art that contain the light of creation and the chule to see it. It shocks your brain to say, oh my God, that's art, that's crazy, that can't be that, this, that. And then the next time you encounter a painting or a book or a poem or something you might have seen before even, it will be revealed to you in a whole new way. The revelation came through further concealment, because seeing that other thing brought concealment onto your life. That's what, seeing whatever it's depicting in a raw or in a wrong way. It brought concealment, but it brought a concealment that ultimately brought about a greater revelation of something.
So bad art isn't art that conceals. Maybe bad art is art that doesn't make you think at all.
Yeah, I would say that. More like, mindlessness type of thing.
So
like a lot like pop songs, for example. A lot of them, like very surface, fake, universal. Universal in the sense that like.
To make money.
I'll make
Poppy.
the most money because everyone in the world will review it, but not universal in the sense that it's unifying things.
commercial depth.
Yeah. I think that's a distinction we have to make in art, because there is art that conceals but ultimately reveals. On NPR this week. What? Yeah. On NPR, they were profiling this, I forgot his name, but his stuff is being previewed at the drawing space, wherever that is. He was this French, child book writer, cartoonist, contemporary of, Maurice Sendak, whose stuff was banned in America in, the 60s and stuff because he wrote, intense children's books, to say the least, and a lot of, erotic stuff. Because, listen to why they were interviewing it. At the beginning, you're like, that's the face. By the end, you're almost like, I believe in this guy.
Did I miss these erotic children's books?
They were banned for so many years.
What are you talking about? He didn't write any erotic children's books.
Do you know what I'm talking about?
No, I don't. Who or what?
Who?
Yeah, I know who you're talking about.
You are, right? What's his name?
Maurice Sendak.
No. Contemporary Maurice.
Oh. I'm like.
So, at the end, he said, we live in a world that, isn't this rosy world that, he was saying at the time, that America is painting for their youth. So, he said, I shock my audience from a young age because it prepares them for the world. And I think he was Jewish. He might have been Jewish, but he lived in Nazi-occupied France, and when his kids were growing up, he said a fun tangent, because we like tangents here, so he said a story where he came into school the day or the week or whatever after the Nazis took over, and the assignment was draw a Jew, to kind of promote anti-Semitic, anti-Semitism. So he went home, the homework assignment was to draw a Jew, and he said to his mother, what does a Jew look like? And he said his mother said, I don't know, he probably wears a cap and has I forgot what else she said, some simple drawing. And he brought it in, and the teacher tore it up, and this is not what a Jew looks like, because it was the image of a regular person. It wasn't a hook-nosed, whatever, miser, Shylock.
Money belt.
So he said he took his kids to the concentration camps when they were young, which you could debate another time. But he said because it made them more tolerant, open people as adults by seeing what the world kind of is and can do.
Well, that's the thing. Seeing what the world can do can do two things to you. It can depress you, or it can spur you to make it better.
Yeah.
And those are the winners and those are the losers.
Those are the haves and those are the have-nots.
Those are the people. Those are the optimists and those are the pessimists. That's the difference.
But the point I'm highlighting and stressing, but I know I'm not highlighting and stressing because I'm saying a lot of extra details, is his notion of shocking his audience and his kids' brains in a way that opens up their brain wider and bigger
But you don't really need to do that so much with kids. Like, I would say, if anything, adults need that more because we're more desensitized. Like, I see my nephews and nieces playing with, like, a block of Lego, and they're like, this is a spaceship, rocket launcher, or whatever. And I'm like, I just see a block of Lego. Whereas, like, I think the whole notion of art is that, I guess what you were saying, like, with the renewing the familiarity and in that God is revealed, like, art by nature has to operate through the familiar. Like, there are only so many colors that we can register, and shapes and sizes and different, things that are very familiar to us. And good art is one that will take, like, a painting of a chair and make us really think about what a chair is.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think it's harder. For him, he did it with children because they're impressionable.
Right.
I think that's another point he was making. Like, teenagers already are kind of like, or even young adults are set in the way that they see and think about things. And what shocks them, it almost takes like a Holocaust to shock them. Not talking about the Holocaust, but a young person, and I think the artist functions in a way for the adult in the way he's able to penetrate the mind of an adult who thinks I have the way I see the world.
It's fixed.
I think they say like personality is set by 30. That's what they say.
Oh no.
Personality is set. I think it's a load of crap.
I think Moshe Rabbeinu was still growing after 30.
But that's what they say. Yeah.
Come on, man. You're a rabbi. You should be saying these things.
I want to say
It's not.
Personality is set.
You should be believing in these things.
It's like 3 years old.
Okay, let's come back for a second.
But I think about like Mark Rothko, who just like basically put up like a block of color, but still like there's something so revealing about his work because you see it and you're like, that's blue.
Yeah, I think those type of artists are
I gotta go back to Queens.
the examples we should be using as ones who simple.
What do you do for
A
Shabbos?
lot of Rembrandts, not the ones where he paints people, are similar. It's like colors coming out reveal something much more than red and
Go to the pub.
and I just how much time do we let's
Wrap it up.
okay, let's bring it home to Purim for a second.
Yeah.
So let's go to page 3. The sources we'll skip are just notions of the artist within us is through, in Chidushei Torah and stuff like that, the ability to take something old, take something that seems closed, and open it and reveal it and contribute to the, the movement of it is a possibility for everyone. And Rav Kook also says it's within everyone to be able to, to tap into the revelatory ability that an artist seems to contain. So you can read those on your own. But this, where it comes to Purim, is, let's return one final time to Aviva Gottlieb. So another association of the word Amon, nursling, as we saw in the beginning, which Amon was artist, Amon was that artist in that potential space, that artist space, is also in the opening section of Midrash Rabbah. By use of the proof text, the Midrash sets up a continuum of meanings on the axis of manifestation, of manifestation hiddenness. Wisdom is Amun, in the sense that it is partially revealed, capable of being imparted, but is also opaque, concealed, inviting the growing child in her separateness to discover, create what no one can tell her. It is this sense of the fecundity of hidden possibilities that empowers the child, even as she remains in intimacy with the Father. So the notion of something being partially revealed, and there's still a part of it that's concealed, which is that where we come in when we have that moment of aha moment. So now it hasn't been fully revealed, so we're reduced to like children almost, of like starting from the beginning. when you have an aha moment, it reduces you to that, I'm willing to start over. I'm willing to become a child again. A child means that I could do one thing one day and one thing the next day. It means that I'm transitioning. I'm in a space of infinite potential. I'm easily impressed upon. I have the ability to function without the notions of someone else controlling me. And that only comes when there's a partial revelation. And the highlight of it all is Avram Avinu and what he goes through in those episodes of being, Lech Lecha and Akedah. He's told what to do. There's a godly revelation to him, but the destinations are never revealed to him. There is something left concealed to Avram Avinu, which Rashi says the reason is Lo gila lo haaretz miyad kidei lechavava be'enav v'laseis lo schar al kol dibor v'dibor. So it's hidden in order that he gets schar for each step and each word that's uttered, because it's still concealed. He doesn't know where he's going. He doesn't know what the end goal is, the end place is. He knows that there's a godly revelation, but there was still a partial concealment. So it was revealed in order to endear it to him, and the Maharal picks up on this and says something fascinating. Do you guys have an arrow, or did I only put that in mine? On the
I think it's on.
yeah. Okay, so it's about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Exactly 9 lines down. So he's saying why on that Rashi lo gila es haaretz miyad shekasher ein megala lo miyad adavar chaviv alav v'bnei shu mitztayer achar mitzvah, because shelo yada, because when you don't know what the result of something is going to be, there's a fear and a pain and a suffering that goes on. I don't know what the outcome is going to be. Anxiety. Umipnei kach kol dibor v'dibor shehu mekabel min Hashem Yisbarach mekabel oso b'hava. So that every shred that comes through the light, every shred that comes through of godliness, we soak it up, we drink it, we love it. But no sein lo schar al kol dibor v'dibor. So then, you're given schar for each dibur, meaning every little bit of godliness that seeps through the cracks of this world, we're a lot more receptive to. If it's fully revealed, so then, or mostly revealed, what we see, it's not going to really impress us. But if we're starving and we're thirsty, we're parched and we're about to die, and then a little shred of godliness comes through the cracks, we're open. The soy puerto.
Are you saying from Tzara Hagra?
No.
I'm just throwing it out.
I'm saying that the concealment, the more concealed means that we're a lot more receptive to the fact that the world was able to come out of that place of concealment. It was receptive to the idea of creation, right. The world, the space. So too, when we experience a concealment, we're so much more open, and that little drop is a lot bigger of a revelation for us than if it was dumped on us with a bucket. And I think that's where Purim comes in. The holiday of Purim, everything is manifested hiddenness. Everything is concealed. The next day we went back to paying taxes and serving Achashverosh. But only because, specifically in this Yom Tov, when it's concealed, so we didn't need these revealed miracles, because the little bit that was revealed to us was enough to carry us through. And it's enough to carry us to the end of days. It's enough to bring us and kind of cash it in at the end of the days. Hey, here's my little bit, And I think the power of Purim is you hear a lot of people are always looking for that Purim experience when they're looking for something grand. And the more you're mitzamtzeh, what you're looking for in Purim, the more revealed Purim will be within you, and the more revelation you'll undergo in Purim. And we should be blessed to mitzamtzim what we're looking for in Purim in order to reveal the depths of Purim in our lives.
It's so true though, if you think about it. Purim is the only holiday where we obsess over trying to find God in every part of the story. Whereas with Pesach, we're like, okay, the sea split, we had these like 10 plagues. Like with Hanukkah, you know, the oil lasted, whatever. But with Purim, because it's not there, we're like, we try to like unpack it in every part of it.
And like we're very receptive to like even the faintest notion of like this could be God. Maybe Melech HaChashverosh they say isn't, but maybe Melech HaChashverosh is like manifesting God in a way. Like the idea of being open and receptive to godliness is the same notion of like our brain being shocked to see it is. We see God in things that we never thought He would be, or couldn't imagine. And it's even more important for us, I think, or just me, like growing up in a way where like God is reserved for the place, the house of worship, and the place of study. You know, and it's kind of like just go on with the rest of your day as if like this isn't a place for God. So I think I've almost accepted it, even though like even now like reading and learning and my whole focus in thought and speech is that, but in actual practice it's like, am I revealing God in every step that I take? No, because it's almost my nature at this point to like only connect to God in shul and in Beis Medrash and in Chabura and so it's like being mitzamtzim where we're looking for God only reveal God in more places because you know.
Jeremy didn't come. Jeremy was like mad sick yesterday.
When I say mitzamtzim, I don't mean we take it to only mean shul. I mean we hone in on the one place where we are at that moment and look for God right there. Cut out all that excess. Only look for God in that little space that we are in at that moment.
And not just like in the religious or oh my God moment.
We almost have to get out of it.
Yeah.
Religious and oh my God moments.
You know what? It sounds like I would want to do.
Like the Rav thinking